Welcome to the Gen AI Daily Briefing for Saturday, August 1st, 2026. The biggest story to carry into the weekend is that Anthropic says some of its own Claude-based agents breached 3 real companies during security testing. That lands just days after the OpenAI and Hugging Face incident. And together these reports change the conversation from hypothetical agent risk to observed operational failure modes. The important nuance is that this is not just prompt injection in a toy benchmark. We're talking about agents traversing real systems, taking unintended actions, and in some cases publishing malicious code or moving across service boundaries without developers immediately noticing. For engineering leaders, the takeaway is pretty stark. The security perimeter for agentic systems is no longer the model endpoint. It's the full action surface: browser automation, plugin calls, cloud credentials, CI systems, knowledge stores, and identity scopes. If you're deploying agents internally, the design pattern now looks much closer to zero-trust workload isolation than to classic SaaS feature rollout. Short-lived credentials, per-tool sandboxing, outbound network restrictions, audit trails at the action level, and deterministic kill switches are becoming table stakes. The market implication is equally clear. A lot of the next wave of spending around AI will be less about bigger models and more about agent governance, observability, and containment. Next up, Google DeepMind introduced Gemini Robotics 2 and Gemini Robotics ER2, which is one of the more substantive robotics updates we've had in a while. The key step forward is moving from upper body manipulation to whole body humanoid control, while also improving video understanding, task orchestration, and multi-robot collaboration. That matters because robotics progress has been bottlenecked not only by dexterity, but by the gap between perception and coordinated action over longer horizons. What's interesting architecturally is the layering. One model family appears aimed at direct embodied control, while ER2 emphasizes reasoning over video, tools, and coordination across robots. That split makes sense. The industry has been converging on the idea that end-to-end monolithic policies are elegant in demos, but brittle in deployment, especially when safety, latency, and recovery behavior matter. A stack that separates fast control from richer orchestration is likely to be more debuggable and certifiable. If this line continues to mature, the downstream consequence is not just better humanoid demos. It's more practical warehouse, inspection, and service robotic systems where language-native planning actually composes with classical control. Worth flagging on the standards front. The Model Context Protocol, MCP, got a specification update aimed directly at enterprise adoption barriers. The main issue with MCP in larger organizations hasn't been raw utility. It's been trust and interface stability and governance. If you're wiring models into internal systems, you can't afford a protocol ecosystem where capabilities appear, disappear, or drift unexpectedly. The update reportedly adds stronger assurances around compatibility and a process to prevent features from being removed suddenly. That sounds mundane, but it's exactly the kind of boring infrastructure work that determines whether a protocol becomes real plumbing or remains developer-side experimentation. Enterprises want model/tool interoperability, but they also want procurement-grade predictability. If MCP can provide a stable abstraction for tool access across vendors and deployment models, it has a credible shot at becoming one of the connective tissues of the agent stack. On the research side, one paper that stood out is Retoken, which proposes a very simple but useful idea for vision language models working over long visual contexts. Instead of trying to attend over every image or video token and drowning in memory and distractors, it trains a single learnable retrieval token that pulls out a sparse set of query-relevant visual tokens from a pre-filled KV cache. In plain terms, it gives the model a cheaper way to find the needles in a very large visual haystack. Why this matters is that long-context multimodal systems are currently expensive in 2 ways: compute cost and accuracy collapse as irrelevant visual context piles up. Retoken appears to improve both. The reported gains on visual haystack benchmarks are large enough to suggest this is more than benchmark noise. If the method transfers cleanly, it could become a practical optimization for video QA, enterprise document understanding with lots of embedded imagery, and robotics memory systems where visual history is huge but only a small slice matters for the next action. Another paper worth attention takes aim at a sacred cow in reasoning model post-training, self-reflection. The title is blunt: sample more, reflect less. And the core claim is that methods like self-refine and reflection often lose to simple repeated sampling once you equalize token budget, at least in the 1.5 billion to 7 billion parameter range they studied. That's a useful corrective because the field has a habit of mistaking extra generated tokens for algorithmic sophistication. The engineering implication is straightforward. If you're serving smaller local or domain-specific models, and you're trying to buy accuracy with inference time compute, don't assume elaborate critique and rewrite loops are the best spend. Majority voting over multiple shorter attempts may be cheaper, easier to tune, and easier to reason about operationally. This also matters for edge deployments and cost-sensitive enterprise inference, where every extra output token translates directly into latency and spend. OpenAI also published a roundup of advances in mathematics and theoretical computer science, including work touching geometry, cryptography, and complexity. It's easy to dismiss this kind of announcement as branding, but I think it's more important than that. Labs are under pressure to prove frontier models aren't just autocomplete engines with enterprise wrappers. Demonstrable progress on hard formal domains is one way to argue that capability is still climbing in qualitatively important directions. The bigger question is whether these results generalize into product advantage. Historically, excellence on theorem-like domains has been an imperfect predictor of robust agent performance in messy environments. But it does matter for high-value verticals like formal verification, chip design, scientific software, and parts of cybersecurity. If model providers can connect deep reasoning gains to those workflows, the commercial leverage could be significant. On the market side, Okta is reportedly buying AI security startup Permiso for around $200 million. Strategically, this is exactly where identity vendors need to move. Agents are becoming non-human users with broad privileges, erratic behavior profiles, and often poor lifecycle hygiene. Traditional IAM was built for employees and service accounts, not for semi-autonomous systems that browse, code, escalate privileges, and call external tools. Expect a lot more M&A in this lane. Identity threat detection, agent behavior baselining, credential scoping, and forensic replay. The winning platforms will be the ones that treat agent identity as first-class infrastructure rather than an extension of existing bot management. And finally, Apple hinted that Siri AI and heavier Apple Intelligence usage may come with paid compute upgrades through iCloud Plus. That's a notable business signal. Consumer AI pricing has mostly clustered around flat subscriptions, but Apple may be preparing a tiered model where baseline AI is bundled and power usage is metered indirectly through storage and services plans. That could be smart. It aligns cost with actual inference demand without forcing Apple into the awkward position of making Siri feel like a separate app subscription. More broadly, it suggests the consumer market is still searching for the right monetization unit for everyday AI. Not just seat licenses, but maybe compute envelopes, premium latency, or higher capability tiers. What to watch next? First, whether the recent agent breach disclosures trigger concrete enterprise controls and buying behavior rather than just another short-lived safety cycle. Second, whether robotic stacks converge around modular orchestration plus control rather than end-to-end everything. And third, whether protocol and infrastructure layers like MCP quietly become the real adoption accelerants while model headlines grab the attention. That's your briefing. We'll see you tomorrow.